Alright, I am back with another video, and today we are finally getting back to doing one of my deity builds, this being the Chosen of Tiamat. Now, from my understanding of what I've read on the Forgotten Realms wiki about Tiamat, she is basically this evil dragon that is super powerful, that and it's kind of contested whether or not she's actually a god in some tales, but she's just so powerful that she might as well be either way. And the fact that Tiamat is kind of like this big dragon, five-headed thing who is some kind of master of all of the chromatic elements, has a strong connection to the Nine Hells after being imprisoned there, so kind of and actually served as kind of like an archdemon, I think, in Avernus during the Blood War. So she actually is basically kind of like this infernal five-headed multi-elemental dragon, which is fucking awesome. And she's obviously, you know, the sister of Bahamut, and they're in a constant eternal back and forth with each other, which is absolutely awesome. Honestly, the story of Bahamut and Tiamat are actually some of my favorites in all of D&D lore. This is between, and I think Bahamut and Tiamat are basically the only kind of deities that I actually knew quite a bit about before I actually started playing Baldur's Gate 3, since I used them for other things in my own personal games in the past. So with this, this build, I understand that, you know, Bahamut created the Dragonborn, so it's a bit weird for a Dragonborn to be a Chosen of Tiamat. Well, with the Cult of Tiamat existing as it does in Baldur's Gate 3, I thought it would be rather interesting since, you know, according to the Forgotten Realms wiki, after the spell Plague, some of the Dragonborn that were created by Bahamut actually did defect to Tiamat. So I thought that a high-ranking leader of the Cult of Tiamat being a Dragonborn defector sounded really cool, and I decided to have them be a black Dragonborn. Perhaps the fact that their inherent evil nature as a chromatic dragon got the better of them, and that's why they defected. And then I think when they actually became a Tiamat's Chosen, they developed these gold fiery scales. Oh no, it's disappeared. Why? No, come back. No! Everything's fucked up. Oh my god, I'm in the middle of my storytelling and the game just decides, you know what? No. Misclick. They fuck everything up, yeah. So I think, like, when the Dragonborn kind of became Tiamat's Chosen, she would have granted them with, like, the powers of, like, Avernus and, like, Infernal Fire. I'm gonna stutter my words today, I don't know why. And as such, was also grafted these, like, red and fiery gold scales, which I think looks fucking awesome. The fact that you can actually put, like, Draconic Sorcerer scales on top of Dragonborn scales is awesome, and I love it. So, anyways, let's get into the build. With my Draconic Warrior build that I kind of said, oh, you know, this could probably work as a Chosen of Bahamut before the deity builds even became a thing, I made them a Sorcerer, so a Paladin Sorcerer mix. So I thought, for Tiamat, let's make a Warlock Sorcerer mix. If we're leaning into that Infernal thing, let's go all in. Let's make them a Sorcerer, a Draconic Sorcerer, getting their dragon power from Tiamat, but also a Warlock, making them a Sorlock overall with the Fiend subclass, because, you know, Tiamat is kind of a Fiend, so I thought this would work, and it's actually one of my favourite builds. It's super fun. This is actually the build I played as my first casual playthrough in Baldur's Gate 3, that being a Draconic Sorlock, and I really enjoyed it. Although I wasn't a Dragonborn, I was a half-elf, so it's nice to actually finally be able to kind of share this build with you guys. So anyways, let's get actually into the build, as I said before, but then kind of went off on a tangent anyway. So let's actually get into it. Cantrips. I feel like because we're playing kind of a Draconic Sorcerer, I want to grab, but we're kind of, you know, being a Chosen of Tiamat. So with that, I feel like we actually kind of want to grab as many different elemental spells as possible to kind of represent all of the different chromatic dragon elements. So I'm going to be grabbing Firebolt, Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, and Acid Splash, and we'll be able to pick up Poison Spray a bit later. This is going to give us a ton of different options for ranged and close range elemental damage, even though obviously we're going to be speccing into fire because of the infernal aspect. Doing this is going to give us a few more damage options. As for our spells, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious. Chromatic Orb makes so much sense. It is a single spell that can use any of the elements that are associated with dragon elements, that being fire, poison, acid, lightning, ice, all of them. Chromatic Orb is literally a one-stop shop for everything we want for this build thematically, so it absolutely makes sense to take it. And Shield is just one of the best utility options in the game, bar none. As obvious, as I stated before, we are going Draconic Bloodline, which means we are going to be getting that unarmored defense and that little bit of extra HP for each sorcerer level, which is awesome. As for our Dragon Ancestor, choose whatever you like, it really doesn't matter, but I would recommend obviously the chromatic options to stay on theme, so any of these top ones here. And like I say, because I want to kind of spec into fire, since we're going for that infernal element, we are going with Red, which is going to give us our Burning Hands feature, which is just an extra nice little fire attack that fires out in a cone in front of us. So I think you're probably going to be casting Chromatic Orb more, but Burning Hands is still a nice option to have. Obviously, like I say, we're going with some Dragonborn Scales, and I've also just gone with the basic red, although there are a few other options that look quite nice. In fact, ooh, that matches the outfit a bit better with the black and the red. You know what? I might go with that, but it's your preference. And as for our stats, let's make sure we get this all right. I would say I quite like the look of getting 14 dex, so we have a decent amount of AC with our unarmored defense. Constitution is 16, so we have a decent chunk of HP, since this is going to be this is going to be kind of a Gish build, so we want to be up close and personal as well as casting spells. And also we want a Charisma at 17, because this is going to be really easy to get to 18 with Ethel's Boon. So you start at 17, get 18 with Ethel's Boon, and then it's only one ability score improvement to get to 20, which is super important since we're only going to be getting 2 feats with this build. So we absolutely want to be able to get our spellcasting ability modifier stacked up. So we definitely want to be at 17 for this, which is weird, I know, but it works. And I'm just going to take a 10 in Wisdom. As for our skill proficiencies, Sleight of Hand, Stealth come from my, I believe it's my Urchin background, yes. And, or whatever background gives us proficiencies, and Arcana and Persuasion come from the Sorcerer. Right, so I think the best way to handle this, since we do have our basic it for spell casting, I would quite like to swap over to Sorcerer straight away to get, to Warlock straight away to get our fighting stuff before we go back to spell casting with Sorcerer. So let's go straight into Warlock next. As for our cantrips, I don't see a reason not to grab Eldritch Blast here, even though yes, we're kind of wanting to do more stuff with like elemental magic such as Firebolt and the like. I mean, there's no reason really not to grab Eldritch Blast, and I think we're also going to grab Poison Spray here to be able to grab that final damage cantrip. However, if you don't feel like Eldritch Blast is on theme and you'd rather swap it out, in which in fact I might do just for this build, but obviously just take Eldritch Blast if you want the most powerful option, I'm going to go with Friends just because I think it's another really strong option. So now we have Poison Spray and Friends, and with Poison Spray we have now completed that full elemental kind of circle. So now we have all of the kind of elemental cantrips, which is quite nice. And as stated before, we are going to go with the Fiend. This is going to give us Dark One's Blessing, meaning that we, when we reduce a hostile creature to 0 hit points, this gift from your patron grants you 4 temporary hit points. It's actually hit points equal to your ability score modifier for your charisma, I believe, so this will increase as it goes up. So yeah, this is pretty good. As for our spells, we already get Burning Hands from our Draconic Ancestry, so we don't need it. So I'm going to grab Armour of Agathis and Hellish Rebuke. This is going to give us Ice and Fire, 2 dragon elements, which are really, really cool. And Armour of Agathis is going to stack up really nicely, giving us temporary HP, which unfortunately won't stack with Dark One's Blessing, but will still be good in the long run. And also will let you do cold damage to anyone that hits you. This is going to be super nice. And we also have Hellish Rebuke, meaning we get to retaliate with fire damage when we take an attack, which is awesome. At Warlock level 2, we're going to be grabbing some Eldritch Invocations. Now, if you did decide to take Eldritch Blast, obviously just grab Agonizing and Repelling Blast here, but I figured we could get some other things while we're here. Beguiling Influence is going to give us proficiency in Deception and Persuasion. If you wanted to go that route and take a different skill proficiency at level 1, you could grab this here and get those extra proficiencies. Double Sight is going to give you Magical Dark Vision, allowing you to get through darkness, which I am personally going to be taking. If you wanted to do the Darkness Devil Sight strategy, you absolutely could. But I think that Devil's Sight here, just in general, is pretty good, especially when you do start going against enemies that will cast Fog, Cloud, and Blindness. It's going to be super useful. Now, as for your other kind of evocation, it doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to recommend a personal favorite of mine, that being Beast Speech, which is just going to give you those extra you know, dialogue options that you wouldn't normally be able to get. It's definitely one of my favorites. And also we get to pick another spell at this level. I mean, I think Hex is going to do you pretty well in the early levels. It only costs a bonus action and it's going to let you do some extra necrotic damage. It's not really on theme, and you will be replacing this with other concentration options later. So it's kind of but I feel like in the early game it is going to do you pretty good. Next up at Warlock level 3, we're going to be getting our Pact boon, and I would say that we are obviously going to be going with Pact of the Blade, if you couldn't tell. This is going to give us Bind Pact Weapon, meaning that our weapon, we can bind a weapon in our hand, we become proficient with it, and we cannot drop or throw it, and it uses our and that weapon will use our Charisma modifier for the attack and damage rolls. Super, super awesome for a Gish build that uses Charisma. Absolutely worth grabbing. I'm going to have to do a Blade Warlock Swordsbard mix one of these days. I'm surprised I haven't done that. Or have I? No, wait, my virtual build was that. Still, I'd kind of like to do something a little bit different than that, maybe. We'll figure it out. As for our spells, you can take whatever you like here. Again, it really doesn't matter. If you want to go for the Darkness Devil Sight combo, you absolutely can. But I think something like Misty Step or Scorching Ray would also work really well, so I'm going to grab Scorching Ray here. At Warlock level 4, we're going to be grabbing up our first feat, and I absolutely want to go for that Charisma improvement. With Ethel's Boon, we will now have a 20 in this stat, meaning that we will have maxed out our Charisma, which is awesome. Yes, we're getting this a little bit later at level 5 because we started off as Sorcerers, mainly for concentration saving for proficiency and that unarmored defense, but now that we have this set up, we're going to be super, super powerful. We also get an extra cantrip at this level, and you know what? Here we go. Grab Eldritch Blast, like I said, or even Bone Chill if you wanted that extra little bit, but I think Eldritch Blast is still going to be a solid option, even if you don't spec into it with the invocations, but if you did pick it, get the invocations. Now we get another spell at this level, and obviously I'm going to be picking Misty Step. It is just one of the most helpful utility spells in the game. At Warlock level 5, which is going to be our final level of Warlock, we're going to get a few things. Number 1 is our class feature Deepened Pact, meaning that because we're a Blade Warlock, we gain an extra attack, which is awesome. That's why we went this high. We're also going to be getting another Eldritch Invocation, and take whatever you like here, it really doesn't matter. You gain a couple of extra options like Mire the Mind to cast Slow, or Sign of Ill Omen to cast Bestow Curse. I think I'm just going to go with Agonizing Blast here since we did take Eldritch Blast a little bit later on, so it's worth getting that extra bit of damage out of it. And finally, we do gain access to some extra spells here. Now, obviously, Fireball is going to look pretty tantalizing, but we are going to be getting this as a Sorcerer later, whereas there is something that we won't be able to get as a Sorcerer later, and I feel like you can wait to get Fireball, so I feel like we can skip it here in favour of... Ugh, I can't speak today, my apologies. It's been a weird day, it's a Friday, it's a busy day, you know, but, you know, time to relax. Anyways, Hunger of Hadar, this is going to let us do cold and acid damage, which, you know, is 2 elements on our little chromatic kind of scale here. And it's also going to let you do a few other things. You can blind creatures within the space, meaning that if you have the Devil Sight combo, you're going to be doing super well here. And creatures starting their turn in the area take 2d8 cold damage. No, 2d6, I'm stupid. 2d6 cold damage, and creatures ending their turn take acid damage. So just getting that cold and acid damage mix is really, really nice and on theme for this build, so I want to pick it up. But again, you could just grab Fireball here if you would prefer. And as I said before, we are done with our Warlock levels, meaning that we are going to be jumping back over to Sorcerer for the rest of this build. This means we're going to get access to another spell, and I think we want to grab Ray of Sickness. This is going to give us another poison attack to kind of stay on theme here, which I quite like. We're also going to be able to get our Medic Magic at this level, so I'm going to be grabbing Twin Spell and Distant Spell, meaning that we can cast our spells to 2 enemies or allies at once, and cast them even further. Next up at Sorcerer level 3, we're going to be getting some extra meta magic options, that being Quicken Spell, because honestly it's amazing, and we might as well take it. We're also going to get some level 2 spells at this point, and we've kind of already grabbed the elemental spells we would want from this sort of level, so it's entirely up to you what you want to grab here. I'm personally going to be going, I mean, you could go for something like Ice Knife if you wanted that kind of ice elemental attack, but it feels a bit pointless when Chromatic Orb kind of does the same thing, although this does do piercing damage on top of the cold damage, so you know what, for the sake of being on theme, we'll pick it up. With level 4 Sorcerer, we're going to be getting another cantrip, and this is kind of a take-what-you-like situation. I'll grab Bone Shield just to get that extra elemental damage roundup. And we're also going to get another level 2 spell here, so I'm personally going to be grabbing Misty Image. Although, I have just seen Phantasmal Killer, or Phantasmal Force, which would let us continuously do damage of the element that we last did, which could be on theme, but it requires our concentration, and I feel like we have better stuff to concentrate on. So, let's just go with Mirror Image. Now we also are going to be able to grab a feat here, and you can grab whatever you like here. I don't think you're going to be too weak if you decide not to go with a specific option, but I am personally going to be going with an ability score improvement to bump up our dexterity to 16 to increase our AC. I feel like our constitution is at a comfortable level, so I'm not too worried about that, and I'd rather get the higher AC from a dex buff, so let's grab that here. At Sorcerer level 5, we're going to have access to some extra things, namely level 3 spells. Now, we already have Haste. Oh, that's probably from an item we're holding. So if you wanted to pick up Haste here, you can, but obviously since we're a bit delayed in this, I want to grab Fireball here because it is going to be one of our better fire damage spells in the game, and so it's nice to have. Next up at Sorcerer level 6, we're going to be gaining some subclass features, including our elemental affinity damage, meaning for us, when we deal fire damage, we add our charisma modifier, which is awesome. We're also going to gain the ability to spend a sorcery point to gain resistance to the same damage type, but, spoiler alert, we're going to have fire resistance already. I mean, if you couldn't tell with the armor. Now, as for our spell, obviously the most powerful thing to pick here would be Haste or something like Counterspell, but again, to stay on theme of getting these multiple elements, I want to grab Lightning Bolt. It's just, I don't think, like, from a roleplay perspective, it feels really good to just be able to cast a different spell every now and again. It makes combat a little bit less boring. Like, I just kind of like having the option of being able to do multiple elements. Yes, it is a little bit weaker in a game like this compared to maybe 5e, whereas you have more levels to work with and as such can grab more powerful and more varied spells. But I just like having these options here personally for me, so I'm going to be grabbing it. Obviously you could pick something else if you would rather. Finally, at Sorcerer level 7, we're going to get access to level 4 spells, and you can take whatever you like here. It really doesn't matter. We have a few good options. Wall of Fire. It does require our concentration, but obviously it would be on theme. Ice Storm would also be on theme as well, giving you another powerful ice attack. I mean, you could even go with Banishment if you want to banish someone to the hells, as in my Fire Pyromancer video. Fuck you, go to hell. But yeah, I mean, you have a ton of options here, just pick whatever you like. I think I will grab Haste just so we do have multiple casts of it per day, but obviously you could even go to replace a spell here if you feel like there's something that you're not really using as much. So maybe we could swap out Mirror Image for... let's grab Ice Storm, since that doesn't require our concentration. And that is the build. Ah, patch 4, why did you have to break my Wasard movement mod? You pain me. So with this, we have a lot of elemental damage options, as well as the ability to be effective in both melee and ranged combat with our spell attacks. With our Bind Pact weapon feature, we are going to be getting a decent amount of damage on our weapons, of which I'll go into in a minute, but we also have a ton of powerful utility options for our spells. We have a maximum level of level 4 spell slots with level 3 spell slots that recover on a short rest. We have plenty of options here to just be able to be effective in both range and melee and with different elements, so this build feels quite fun, at least to me. See, Armour of Agathis will give you a decent chunk of extra HP and the ability to deal cold damage. I feel like overall you're going to have a lot of utility with this build, and a lot of survivability, actually. I think it's quite fun, especially since we're a Charisma caster, meaning we're also good in dialogue, so, you know, overall, I feel like this build is going to be quite fun. But let's get into the equipment. So, we have a few options to get to get through, but let's just go over the standard stuff I kind of have here at the start. First off, the Hat of Fire Acuity. Whenever you deal fire damage, you gain Arcane Acuity for 2 turns, and for those of you that don't know, Arcane Acuity has gives the affected entity a +1 bonus to its spell attack rolls and spell difficulty class per turn remaining, meaning for each fire spell you cast, your next spells have a higher chance to hit, which is awesome. Next up is the Infernal Robe. I mean, if you're playing an evil character, there's no kind of reason not to get this. It's going to give you a few really useful benefits for this character, namely that being a +1 to our armor class, resistance to fire damage, and fire shield warm, allowing you to conjure up a fiery aura around you, allowing you to be resistant to cold damage, and deal 2d8 fire damage to anyone who hits you with a melee attack. It's just really, really cool and looks absolutely awesome on a build like this. And it's a piece of clothing, so it works with our unarmored defense. I've also included here the Spell Might Gloves. When casting a spell that requires an attack roll, you take a -5 penalty to the roll to deal an additional 1d8 damage. This means that you have Sharpshooter for attack roll spells, which is awesome. This is going to work really well for our cantrips and most of our ranged spells, like stuff like Scorching Ray. You're going to get a lot out of this. Eldritch Blast could do a lot with this. Super, super fun. But this is only obtainable in Act 3, so there are a couple of other options you can go for, such as the Flawed Helldust Gloves to give your weapon attacks an additional bit of fire damage, which is on theme, and also buff your strength saving throws, or if you feel like you want to continue with this melee line, grab the Helldust Gloves in Act 3 to make that a 1d6 fire damage buff, and also give you a little bit of bonus to your spell attack rolls and spell save DC, like the Hat of Fire Acuity. It'll also give you the Ray of Fire cantrip, which is just a powerful extra fire attack, so, you know, it's also on theme. But obviously there is another glove option that I forgot to grab here, but I'll just mention it quickly. That is the Daredevil Gloves, I believe they're called, which will allow you to treat your ranged spell attacks as melee spell attacks while next to an enemy. So if you're up close and personal fighting with your weapon and then want to cast a spell without a penalty, you can do so with those gloves. So it's a pretty useful option. As for our accessories, we have my Elemental Gish setup, is what I call it. The Necklace of Elemental Augmentation. When one of your cantrips deals acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage, you add your spellcasting modifier to the damage dealt. This means that for example, our Firebolt cantrip is going to get a double stack of damage from this and our class feature as a sorcerer, so it's going to be super, super powerful. Is it as powerful as Eldritch Blast? Probably not, because it's not 3 beams, but you get the point. We also have the Ring of Arcane Synergy, allowing you to add your spellcasting modifier to the damage of your weapon attacks after casting a cantrip. Combine this with haste to be able to do big damage in a single round. And on that same sort of thing, we have the Ring of Elemental Infusion. When you deal acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage, when using a spell or cantrip, that element infuses your weapon, giving you an extra d4 of damage of that element type. So if you cast haste on yourself, you can maybe do a Firebolt, or a Ray of Frost, or a Shocking Grasp to attack a nearby enemy, and then your weapon attacks are going to deal a ton more damage, as well as the cantrip itself dealing a ton more damage. This is just one of the better kind of elemental cantrip setups, and I mean, if you ever build an Eldritch Knight with these, it could be super fun. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. Our weapon of choice for Act 1, so kind of the early game, is the Everburn Blade, which, surprisingly, I've never ever used in a build. This is the first time. I think it looks absolutely awesome with a build like this. It is a super powerful greatsword that deals 2d6 plus 4 slashing damage with our build, which would actually be a +5 if our charisma was maxed out, which it would be if you actually built this correctly. And deals an extra d4 fire damage. You can get this like within the first 5 minutes of the game if you know what you're doing. Obviously, I won't explain that here, but you can kind of find a build guide on it. But basically, you just need to use Shadowheart's command drop on an enemy in the tutorial. But if you want to upgrade from this, there are a couple of neat options that are on theme. We have the Drake Throat Glaive, which is just the perfect Dragonborn weapon. Enemies have disadvantage on saving throws against your Dragonborn breath weapon. In our case, it is an acid spray, but if you go for a different element of Dragonborn, you can do a different type of damage, which is awesome. It's a +2 weapon, which is great, and it has Draconic Elemental Weapon, which, for no concentration and until your next long rest, which I didn't realize. I thought it only lasted, I thought it had a turn limit like regular elemental weapon. You imbue a weapon with elemental power. It receives a +1 bonus to attack rolls and deals an additional 1d4 damage of your choice. Even if you don't actually want to use this weapon, you can just have it in your inventory, throw the weapon you do want to use on the floor. You can buff it with this ability and then just pick it up again and use it. It's super fun, super cool, and works perfectly for this build if you wanted to use it. And looks pretty cool. And finally, in Act 3, you can get the Hellfire Great Axe, which means whenever you deal damage with this weapon, you gain 2 turns of heat. It deals an extra 1d6 fire damage by default, so if you wanted to stack it with either of these options, you would gain a ton of fire damage on a single attack, which is super, super cool. And honestly, it looks awesome. Friggin' look at that shit. I really, really like it. So any of these 3 weapons, being the Everburn Blade, the Drakethroat Glaive, or the Hellfire Great Axe, are going to do you good. So yeah, that is the build. Overall, I really, really enjoyed building this character. It was nice to kind of get back into the deity builds and kind of make something a bit fun like this. And obviously being able to do a counterpart to my original Draconic Warrior build and finally making another Dragonborn was also super, super fun. And I feel like you can kind of play this as either an evil, like a purely evil character who is truly a servant of Tiamat, or maybe you could do someone who's kind of on a redemption arc, but it's entirely up to you however you play this character, but I definitely think this works better in an evil build. So yeah, this video is going to be going up, I guess, on Friday, that's the time of recording, and I initially said this build was going to go up on Saturday, but I've decided to take Saturday and Sunday off this weekend because I have some extra things I need to do, so there is going to be no videos over this weekend unless I manage to find a little bit of time, so I'm going to get some final housekeeping notes out of the way while I have you here. First off, pretty big one, 2,000 subscribers. I just uploaded my, 1,000 subscriber video a week ago, and yes, technically we had 1,700 subscribers at that point because I was very fucking late to that, but the fact that we've managed to go from 1,000 to 2,000, so for context, when I started making these Baldur's Gate 3 builds, we hit 1,000 subscribers from my initial, because I had about 120 from some of my older videos before I started making Baldur's Gate 3 content, and we hit 1,000 subscribers, so gaining just under 900 subscribers in about a month, just over a month, which apparently is extremely fast growth. So to be able to double that number in about the same amount of time frame, so technically getting 1,000 subscribers in a month, which is even more, is totally insane. You guys are awesome. I'm glad that you guys are still enjoying the content and that it is appealing to a wide enough audience, that there are more people joining this little community of ours. It's actually getting a little bit overwhelming. I've started getting, like, I used to have notifications turned on for every single comment that came in, because I never used to get that many of them. But now I'm getting so many that my phone was actually like refusing to show me all the notifications and just kind of stopped. So I had to turn them off just so my phone like wasn't getting overloaded, which is insane to me. Really, it's awesome. Like, I cannot I can't speak because I'm just so awestruck. I can't underestimate like just how I can't understate how amazing this is, that this whole thing is kind of blown up the way it did. Yeah, maybe I just caught a trend, maybe the algorithm was kind to me, I don't know. Either way, I'm appreciative for what I have here. So the other big ticket item, and you may have already kind of noticed this, I'm not exactly sure how YouTube does things for regular channels, but as of yesterday and today, I am now a member of the YouTube Partner Program, and for those of you that don't know what that means, it is essentially the first stepping stone that people take when they actually do become full YouTubers. It gives you a wider network of support across your videos, a direct liaison with YouTube itself and their support system, but mainly it is the start of being able to monetize your videos on YouTube. I have decided to do this. This means that on this channel, and I'm going to be completely transparent with you guys because I believe in doing as much, this means that you will begin to see ads on some of my videos. I haven't monetized some of my older content, but all of my Baldur's Gate 3 videos are now monetized. And the way I've done it is that you will see ads at the beginning of videos and at the end of videos, no mid-rolls. And I've also gone deliberately through the whole process on Google's website to block any and all advertisements that I find to be distasteful, such as gambling, you know, kind of highly provocative stuff like sexual stuff, kind of get-rich-quick schemes. Basically, any type of YouTube ad that's really, really scummy, I've decided to just knock on the head. The only ones I've allowed are just kind of generic sort of advertisements you'd see kind of on telly that are like, you know, just just regular ads and also gaming ads as well. So while I have kind of monetized my channel, quote unquote, I've greatly limited what ads you will see on this channel to kind of stay within my vision, because again, this isn't really a money-making thing for me. This is not something I want to turn into a job. I have a full-time job that I absolutely love doing, and I don't want to get rid of that. So, but the fact is that if I can make just a little bit of extra money each month on the side, just for, like, you know, just for my time, because I am making these videos every day, and again, I'm doing this for fun, but if I can make just a little bit of extra cash off it, why not, right? I mean, again, it's going to be nothing substantial, but it might be just a little extra bit of money I get to spend each month, maybe even putting that money back into the channel, such as getting better recording equipment, better microphone. I like actually getting a microphone stand so you don't constantly hear me bumping the mic every time I slightly move against my desk. So yeah, so for full transparency, this channel is now monetized. It is now part of the YouTube Partner Program, and as such, ads will start to appear. If you are not a fan of ads, obviously, well, you know what to do. I won't be like holding it against anybody. I just thought, you know what, if I'm going to be doing this every day, why not get a little something out of it back? But yeah, I mean, I think that's everything I needed to talk about. So yeah, I've also kind of done a few other things kind of around the channel, just some general housekeeping stuff. There's a channel trailer available now, which it means if you're not subscribed to the channel, you can kind of go to you can go to the channel page and basically see this little kind of out of context short compilation I made, including stuff from both my Baldur's Gate 3 videos and some of my older content like Phasmophobia and even that one Elden Ring video I made. And there's a lot of kind of funny moments in there, so if you haven't seen it, check it out. But it's just a small thing, so not entirely necessary. But yeah, I think that is going to do it for me. This video was really weird and rambly. I was kind of all over the place because, you know, I'm still kind of getting over the fact, like, every time I sit down to record now, I get a little bit nervous because the channel is getting bigger and it's kind of growing beyond it's starting to really grow beyond the scope of anything I ever expected. There's so many more people coming in now and so many more different ideas and, you know, opinions, and, like, again, nothing bad. I've yet to receive a wholly negative comment since the original Zelda video that got taken down. Everything you guys say has been super supportive, and, like, I don't know, I just feel overwhelmed. It's like that one gif of Meowth from Pokemon, like the anime, if you've ever seen it, and he's just like, wow, I have a lot of people to disappoint. That's kind of what I'm feeling at the moment. I guess it's a little bit of, like everything's just kind of getting ahead of me a bit. So it feels a bit weird, and the fact that I'm also going into this whole, like, YouTube monetization thing and, like, starting to kind of turn this into a thing beyond just me making videos for fun it's a little bit scary, but I feel like you guys are supportive enough that it will just work out. So, but yeah, again, just for the sake of transparency, you will see ads. That's about it. Anyway, I have rambled on way too long, so I'm going to cut it short here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you so much for 2,000 subscribers. I will see you all next time. 2,000. That's like a lot of fucking people.